Hey, kids, welcome back to an early episode. Actually, I was going to say welcome back to another episode of Comic Art Convo. That is, of course, what you're watching, but this is an early episode because my co host, James, Sequential Treasures, as you may know him, is going to be at a Comic Con at the end of the month when this is normally scheduled programming for us. So we moved it up a little bit the day before Father's Day. So here I am. I'm Father Lopresti. I had to get away from the Lopez name tag just for a show or two to kind of remember who I really am deep down inside. But maybe I am Lopez deep down inside. Well, that is a question for another day. Let me bring in my co-host for today's show and every show of Comic Art Convo, Sequential Treasures himself, James Feely. There he is. A little hot. Woo. Ow, too hot in the hot tub. Should have saved that for 4th of July.
Well, we're not going to be doing a show on the 4th of July.
That's true.
So I'm not going to do it. But anyway, yes, that was also in tribute to your Uncle Sam Beats Up Hitler piece.
Oh, well, thank you. The one that I've yet to show on social media.
And besides which, we're talking action movies. And is there anything more American than the action movie? One man alone against an army of evildoers with a single gun that never runs out of ammunition. That's America, baby.
I think I have a few of those that'll fit into that category today. Let's take a quick look, see who's here, and then we'll get on with our action movie picks.
Yes.
Huron the Steadfast is here. Halder 6480. My homie Ellie Munoz says first, but you really weren't. H is for Heretic.
But even if he was, you know what you get for that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
H is for Heretic says, screw your get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. Sorry, I didn't do that right. Leg Kick is here because Leg Kick, of course, is almost always here. Frankly, O0. 40% Zed is here. Fabrizio Aiello says, good evening. Is it evening? I guess it is, because we're 4 o'clock here on the West Coast, so it's 7 o'clock on the East Coast. So that would translate to evening for most. Heidi says, what entrance will he make today? Well, you just found out. Because I'm preparing to be embarrassed.
She isn't here right now. She's actually down. She's down in Pasco because she has to fly out tomorrow for some work-related stuff. So I'm home alone.
Well, that's what happens. Okay, so here's the sequence of events. What entrance will he make today? I'm preparing to be embarrassed. Yep. You did.
Yes.
And then you get this at the end. You did not disappoint. Oh, my goodness. GJ Martinez is here. Good evening, everyone. Ready for another great show? Well, that's what you hope for. Sam Goyer is here. He says, cringe. Geek Avenger, $2. Thank you very much. He says, sweep the leg, Aaron. Okay, thank you for that, Geek. Appreciate it. Shadowhawk Talks is here. Again, we're getting all these Arnold quotes. Remember when I said I would kill you last? Yeah, that's right, man. Matrix, that's what you said. I lied. And you let him go. Let's see. Oh, Geek Avenger says Pascal. Poor lady. Okay, here we are.
Okay, but before we get to the action fest that is about to begin, there are 2 little tidbits we need to do. First is something a little somber. As everyone knows, the great, and I think that is not a unwarranted use of that term, the great John Romita Sr. has passed away, as you all know. And so this being the #1 comic art related live stream, we have to talk about that. And so I talked it over with Aaron, and we put a little something together here, me and him, so that we can tribute one of the great masters, really the last of an era. You know, his passing is just the passing of any Silver Age creator. This feels like the ending of an era with him being gone now. So to honor that and tribute that, we decided to put a little something together, me and him. And so we're going to hit you guys with that right now, a little tribute to the master, John Romita Sr. So let me share this here. We can get this going.
This is too upbeat.
Share screen. Come on. There we go. And there it is.
Survey says. All right. Kaboom. Now, is this?
Is it up?
It is. I'm seeing Spidey Saves the Day. Amazing Spider-Man number 40.
What I did was I now it's impossible to talk about this man's career with only a couple dozen images, but that's what I tried to do. So I'm just going to scroll through these, and you can see some of the great work, the legacy that he has left behind for not just us, but for all generations.
I used to have that issue too. Oh, My Love, number 1, A Boy, a Girl, and My Broken Heart. A lot of people don't know what a great romance artist Romita was. Oh, worked in a Dracula cover there. That's a great cover. It's bringing back these Spider-Man memories. Romita was my favorite Spider-Man artist.
This one was for you, Aaron.
I remember that issue. You made the joke about my body is ugly, misshapen, grotesque, and now I want yours. Well, I guess it is an upgrade. It's not much of an upgrade, but it is an upgrade.
That's one of the editors from Marvel showing up telling John, you're late on that cover.
Exactly. I kind of have regrets selling my Spider-Man collection, but because I used to have every single issue except number 1, which is why I sold it. Nice Avengers, Swordsman and the Mantis. Got that one. That was his Namer's first new costume, I believe.
Yes.
Another classic. Oh, I have that. Big shocker, right?
Aaron with a monster comic?
That is a great issue right there. I also have that. It's like I have a comic collection or
This is
something.
one of my all-time favorites right here was this one. Havoc at the Heart of the Atom.
Yep, Jurella. Girl from the Atom. And Iron Man's gone mad. I'll destroy you all. Well, it just shows what incredible flexibility he had in terms of subject matter that he could handle. I mean, it was basically everything.
That's what I was trying to convey with all this, is just to give you a taste of like he can do a lot. Here's another one that was just for you, Aaron. I
have this comic. Zemnu, baby. I have that one too. I love the Golem. He only lasted for 3 issues. That's a great cover. That's
had to put that one in, considering the situation. Had to put that one in.
Yeah. That is a great cover and a great story arc.
And to conclude, there we are.
John Romita speaks.
John and his ladies.
Yep. He did draw some awfully pretty girls. I have a few I'd like to share of my own. Not as many as you, but just a few. There we go. Now, you showed 40. This is 39, of course. This is such an iconic cover, and the first issue that Romita drew of Spider-Man.
Yes.
I actually have like a little diorama action figure set of this. I have it in my my case there. Now this was the first time that Romita ever drew Spider-Man. He was working on Daredevil and then came over to Spider-Man, somewhat reluctantly, I'm told, to replace Ditko. But this is the first time that Romita drew Spider-Man, was in Daredevil 16. And then, of course, how could we forget this?
Romita's short Daredevil run was like filled with just incredible stuff, because you had the first appearance of the Ox, you had the first appearance of the Gladiator, and then you had the Spider-Man crossover. That's like his run. That's his run. It's like, what a great run to have.
Yep. Well, of course, this is an iconic classic cover that everyone knows. Also, first appearance of the Kingpin, so it makes it doubly valuable. But what a great cover! What a great image!
I almost went with this one, but I went with 75 instead, because I just thought Death Without Warning just felt more in line with how Spider-Man would feel at the loss of John Romita Sr.
Yeah. The last page on this comic, where he's walking away from the garbage can and the costume is hanging out of the garbage can in the alley, is another great image. I wanted to show this because this is a little bit different. Some people may not even be aware of this. But if you look at Savage Tales #1, he did this story called The Femizons. And a bunch of beautiful warrior women ruled the world and were ruling over men, but they were trying to set things right and get men back in charge. The way things ought to be.
They took over thinking, oh, this would be great if we just ran everything, and then they found out how hard it is dealing with all that crap. Like, yeah, let's give it back to the men. Let them deal with it.
But he did this nice, what looks like ink wash or maybe some little grease pencil in there.
Yeah, I definitely see grease pencil.
So, but this right here on the wall looks like ink wash, because it's the unevenness of it, the way it lays there. So, but anyway, it's really cool. You get to see Romita do something a little bit more adult. I mean, this is about as adult as they got back then, but
Ellie Minogue says, I just hit the jackpot. I always thought it was you just hit the jackpot. Well, that's because, see, that was the cover to Marvel Saga number 22, which was setting up the wedding. And so that's why she said, I hit the jackpot, because she's getting that nice fat 15-carat ring you saw getting put on her finger. So there it is. That's her jackpot.
That's right. Peter Parker had to borrow money from her because she was a supermodel to actually buy that ring.
That's right. She's a supermodel with all the money, but he's the one that has to go out and buy that rock.
That's right. With his photographer's salary. And then this one, just because to me it was kind of unusual, but it's one that, or unusual in terms of subject matter, but it's one I remember quite distinctly. Brother Voodoo. Fantastic first issue of Strange Tales 169. And of course, Romita did a lot of. Go ahead.
His style just seems he did just about everything. He did romance, he did horror, he did superhero. He even did, he did like, a fantasy, as you shown with the Amazons. I even think I couldn't find a cover, but I do know he did some interior work for some of the Western books even. So, I mean, he's kind of done it all.
Yep. And he also inked a lot too. Like he inked a lot of Gil Kane Spider-Man stuff and different covers over Kane and other people.
And Buscema too, John Buscema.
Yep, that's exactly right. I got a question here that came up that I want to.
That's why his passing feels.
Go ahead.
Well, that's why I think his passing feels like the ending of an era, because it wasn't just his art, but like you said, he worked with Kane, he worked with Buscema, he worked with Don Heck. He's done inks on other people. So like you saw a lot of his art, even when it wasn't him doing all the art. And so his passing is like the end of an era, the closing of a chapter.
Yeah, because it was basically, he was the last
just so
one.
Prolific. I mean, he's one of the most prolific artists, not just the Silver Age, but of any age.
Yeah, because you had Kirby basically define the 60s, and then Romita and Buscema and Gil Kane to a certain extent kind of defined the next generation house style of Marvel Comics. And certainly during their second heyday anyway. So yeah, I only met him once, but from my personal experience and everything I've heard from everybody else, he was just a wonderful guy too, So it's not just a great artist, but a great human being. Justin says, Aaron, have you ever illustrated a book, not a comic book, but like an infographic or some kind of novel? I have an illustrated book called Fantastical Creatures, How to Hunt Them Down and Draw Them Where They Live, which is a misleading title. I didn't like the title, but basically it's a humor fantasy book. It's got a bunch of paintings and stuff that I did of different creatures. And there's a section in the back of the book that is basically how to draw or how to create one of the things, how I did one of the pieces of art step by step. So, but you can probably find it. I've got a couple copies left, and I think you probably might be able to find one on eBay. It's way out of print, but it's called Fantastical Creatures by me. So that is the only other non-comic book that I have done.
With the Little Bigfoot.
That's right, Little Bigfoot. Of course, all the cigarette smoking he did, he smoked cigarettes and drank coffee, which of course stunted his growth. At least that's what scientists believe, and why he never grows to be actually a real Bigfoot, but a little Bigfoot. So that's just some of the uproarious laughter you'll get from reading that book. Okay. Anyway, that's our little humble tribute to the great John Romita Sr., who will definitely be missed in more ways than one. And of course, our condolences and thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Geek Avengers for $2 says Squeaky and I own that book. Thank you. That's you and me and James, I think, are the only three people that own that book. Anyway, James, are you ready to rock and roll here with your? We'll cut the somber music and.
There is one other thing.
Oh.
As I said, there was two bits. One was to tribute John Romita Sr. And the second.
What am I forgetting?
Some new graded goodness came in.
Well, no, you didn't tell me you were going to do that. But you can do it.
No, it just came in. That's why.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so we can get a little more. How about some rock and roll?
Remember, kids, do not try this at home without your parents' express permission and supervision. I am a professional.
That's right. Because he cuts his finger off and blood will spray up on the screen. All right. We'll cut the music. All right. I'm going to make you big. So get ready for your close-up, Mr. DeVille.
Wow. Double boxed for your protection.
Well, I always like to see that. Let's see. Okay.
Okay, and we'll get it out of the plastic here. Now, this is one I think you're going to enjoy, Aaron. You're going to definitely approve of this.
Hey, if it's a comic book, I already approve. Oh, yeah. What issue is that? 3?
Issue 4, which, if you take a close look.
9.6. Jeez. Kaluta, is this the one Wrightson worked on? Yep, there it is.
It is.
Oh, yeah. I think I have 1 through 3. I don't know if I have 4 or not, which is really disappointing in myself. But if I don't have 4, I'd have to go check. I know I've got 1, 2, and 3.
Well, I guess John Romita Sr. is finding out right now if that is true.
Oh gosh. Oh, my goodness.
But yes, I got this because
9.6. Wow.
As you recall, I have my Conan issue, the one that Neil Adams did.
Yes.
And that was a Marvel book that was out the month I was born. This is a DC book that was out the month I was born. So I now have one from each company.
See, my problem is the month I was born, all those books are too expensive.
Well, that's how you know you're getting old, Aaron. When all the stuff you loved growing up is like, man, it was old. It's all expensive. Well, that's because you're old.
I know. I'm vintage. Vintage.
But yes, so I've now got one of each. Funnily enough, neither one of my books are superhero related.
Interesting.
From when I was born. Conan is fantasy, and this is more like crime noir than it is like a superhero book because he doesn't have any powers. He's just a guy in a red scarf and fedora with some guns. I mean, that's more crime noir than it would be a superhero.
Well, the early 70s was when they were making big pushes to get other sorts of genres in their lineups because superheroes were sort of falling off again at that time.
Yes.
The Silver Age boom was over, and so they were looking to figure out how to excite the sales numbers again. And I guess they did
Yes,
a little
they
bit
were.
with some of this stuff. So anyway, but today we're talking about action movies. And that's kind of a broad spectrum. You could squeeze a lot into that category. But I tried to stay away from sci-fi and things that are overtly horror and things like that and say, you know what? Stick to action adventure, see what I can come up with. So you're going to start, of course.
Of course.
And we'll take a look at your number one that you sent me.
This is the first one here in my short list here of 7 films, folks. I got 7 for you. 7, the lucky 7.
Okay. Got distracted there. Kevin Thomas, sorry my message didn't go through for the super chat. My family doing a fundraiser for a friend. Mind if I drop the link? Yes, please do. Here we go. Take it away, James. This is a good movie.
This is without a doubt, it's one of my favorite, not just my favorite action movies, but one of my all-time top 10 favorite movies. This is the movie, like, if I'm flipping through channels late at night and it's on, no matter what point it adds on the movie, I'll just sit there and I'll stop and I'll watch it because it's just that good. Sir Ridley Scott directing, Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, Richard Harris, an all-star cast. Gladiator from 2000. I love this movie. It's, you know, it's fun because you can tell it's more about being political and you know, the romantic thing, but yet they make it all action, so the guys are going to want to watch it, and it completely works. I love this film. I like the accuracy and like the details of, like, you know, the settings and stuff. It feels very much like it's of that era. And my God, so many good lines in this film. So many good lines. It's so quotable. You know, are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is that why you are here? It was just awesome lines delivered. You know, I will win the crowd. I will show them something they have never seen before. You know, just awesome stuff. And of course, the classic scene when he reveals himself in the arena. He's like, "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. He's Maximus Meridius, leader of the Legion of the North, the general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius,
right?
Father to a murdered son, husband
Yes.
to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next." Oh, dude, that's just so epic a moment.
I know, and the look on Commodus's face when he realizes he's in for it there, or could be in a little bit of trouble. Awesome.
But as always, I come with receipts, folks, because I know some might not say that this is an action film, but if Aaron shows the image that I included along with this, you'll see exactly why it is an action movie.
Oh, I think this is an action film. Like I said, it's a broad window that you can fit a lot of subject matter into.
You could not have an epic battle scene like this and not be an action movie.
Right. I mean, you could have put Braveheart in here and that would have been totally acceptable, I think, as an action film. You know, you could say it's historical.
But again, I've come with the receipts. I found tons of information on the film, like the wound on Russell Crowe's face after the opening battle scenes are real. Because what happened is his horse got startled and backed him into some tree branches, and it scratched up his face. And so those are real injuries he suffered on the set. And that's not all. Over the course of the film, especially in the gladiatorial scenes, he lost all feeling in his right forefinger for 2 years after a sword fight. He aggravated an Achilles tendon injury, broke a foot bone, cracked a hip bone, and popped a few bicep tendons out of their sockets over the course of making the film. So, yeah, this is definitely an action movie because people are getting hurt.
Wait.
I don't know too many dramas or too many political minded films where people are having physical problems like that done to them.
That's right. Well, you know, the great thing about this movie is Ridley Scott combined the summer blockbuster with the sort of historical narrative, and so it's like, I mean, obviously it won Academy Award for Best Picture, so it's not just bubblegum, but at the same time, it has that sort of entertainment value with all this other really interesting character stuff going on, which you don't really see. It usually tends to go one way or the other.
Well, again, I've learned so much about this film when researching all this stuff that originally Maximus was supposed to fight Proximo in the Colosseum after being captured by Commodus. but because of Oliver Reed's death, they had to rewrite it, and that's why he fights
Mm.
Commodus in the end.
Mm.
And Oliver Reed's death actually was a bone of contention almost, because according to this, there was a key clause in the movie's contract that says if any of the people died, the main characters, that the insurer would pay $25 million in compensation for reshooting the scenes with a different actor. So like they could have wrote out Oliver Reed completely and just had him recast as somebody else. But they didn't do that because Ridley Scott said that all the cast and crew were so very tired after a grueling, time with the film, because he died just weeks before it ended. And so they rewrote the script to have a body double and CGI used to give Reed's character a plausible denouement, as it were. So that's how they did that. That's why it was done that way, is because, but they could have completely scrapped Oliver Reed's performance and said, we're just going to get a whole new actor in and reshoot all this stuff. And it would have been the insurer who had to pay the bill of a tune of $25 million.
Well, you got to give him credit then for the integrity and also, the memory of Oliver Reed and the respect for, him as an actor and his performance in the movie, not to just, go, we'll recast it, because he was, he was quite good in this, obviously.
Well, the thing is this was intended as a comeback role for Oliver Reed as a character actor. But since he died, during filming, that didn't happen. And so some critics have said they felt this was the only notable movie he ever did since The Adventures of Baron Munchausen in 1988.
Really? Wow.
Very harsh. But, while we all may mourn the loss of Oliver Reed, not everybody does, because according to this, Russell Crowe became good friends with Richard Harris in the film. But, of course, that didn't last long because, as we know, Richard Harris died a few years later while doing the Harry Potter films. But on the other hand, Oliver Reed and him took an instant disliking to each other. And in fact, Reed at one point challenged Crowe to a fight. I mean, here's a guy who doesn't even realize he's going to be dead before the film is over, and yet he's talking to the star saying, let's you and me fight. That's crazy.
That seems so typical Oliver Reed, though. Hard drinking, him and, him and Richard Harris used to, back in the day.
Well, but that's true too. It's because Richard Harris was also friends with Oliver Reed. So he was friends with Crowe and Reed, but Reed and Crowe didn't like each other. Maybe that helped spur on his death, to just having him get in between those two.
I know, maybe. Wow. Don't do a film with Russell Crowe, I guess, is the message here.
And then let's see what else. Also, I found out Mel Gibson was originally offered the role of Maximus, but he turned it down because he said at 43 years of age, he felt he was too old to play the role.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, in cinema years, 43 isn't that old.
Well, depends on how you look at 43. If you had one of those hard partying lifestyles, you probably don't look too good at 43.
That's true.
But, a surprising font of information for the film, though, for all the historical accuracy you saw in the film, was Connie Nielsen herself, because she is fascinated by that time period. So she was frequently consulted about accuracies of things being shown in the film.
Geek Avenger says Russell Crowe, now he looks like Nero.
He does. But this movie is credited with sparking the revival in historical epics, because after this film, there was Troy in 2004, King Arthur in 2004, Alexander in 2004, 300 in 2006, Kingdom of Heaven in 2005, Robin Hood in 2010, and Noah in 2014. The last two, Robin Hood and Noah, starring Russell Crowe.
There you go. It's just, it is funny how Hollywood goes, oh, wait a minute, they made money? Let's do that,
Yes, that's right.
I had actually, I'll save this for my con story, because talking about Russell Crowe now looking like Nero. So I'll save that for my con story.
Well, and speaking of that, also there was an original draft of the script. The name of the character wasn't Maximus, but Narcissus, the name of the man who killed Commodus in real life.
So wait a minute, Commodus was actually a real emperor?
He was a true emperor of Rome, and he was murdered. Or I guess since he was political, it was politically done. It was assassinated, I guess you would say.
A lot of that going on in Rome.
Although Commodus was initially favored by the Roman people, he lost status through dramatic acts of megalomania, kind of like you saw Joaquin Phoenix doing. You know, he is often considered the initiator of the fall of Rome. During his reign, he incorporated his name into many common terms, such as the term for money and the people. Eventually, the citizens and the Senate had enough of his rule. He was poisoned, and when he vomited out the poison, he was strangled by Narcissus. Afterwards, the Senate returned the language to what it had been before Commodus, and the many statues of himself he'd put up were all taken down. So they Stalinized and just erased him from history. You don't exist no more.
Man, I think the worst position in history to be would be the emperor of Rome. Somebody's always waiting to stab you in the back, you know?
But yeah, originally the character of Maximus was going to be called Narcissus after the guy who actually had killed Commodus in real life.
Very cool.
But I guess they figured that name wasn't tough enough. It sounds too much like a narcissist. Like, well, that makes
right.
You want to root for a narcissist. You want to root for a good guy. So let's have a cool name like Maximus. That's a powerful name. That'll work.
Yeah, I don't know that narcissist would have been a great choice for a name.
I'm not sure about that, Ronan. I don't think maybe the Senate might have done that, but I don't think Commodus himself would have done that.
The commode named after. So does it say when he reigned, Commodus?
I didn't get that information in the places I was looking at. It was just telling me bits and pieces of it. It didn't tell me all the stuff.
I'm going to look
that
up.
I don't know what years his reign was, but he was an actual emperor of Rome, and he was killed. So
interesting.
Just not in an arena by a gladiator.
Storm D says he was Marcus Aurelius's son in real life. He was he was an evil degenerate, just like in the movie. Aurelius failed to teach his son to be stoic.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. Well, aren't you a fountain of knowledge today, James? Is that all we have for this one?
That's all we got for this one. But yes, Gladiator, one of the greatest all-time, action movies ever, as far as I'm concerned. Great movie. Anybody, if you like historical stuff, if you like action, if you like political intrigue and all that subterfuge, if you like a little bit of like romance, it hits on many levels. Definitely a movie worth seeing.
Now, this one I have not seen, so I won't be able to comment on the quality of this picture, but there it is.
Yeah, this is total guilty pleasure for me. This movie, it's Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owens, Monica Bellucci, and Paul Giamatti. And the basic premise of the story is just this: this guy Smith, a man with no real name, he's just called Smith, gets a baby dumped in his lap. And suddenly him and the baby, everyone is trying to kill them. And he tries to save the baby and figure out why it is they've been targeted by Paul Giamatti and a bunch of other people. And hilarity ensues in the most slapsticky action way possible.
I remember seeing this thinking, Shoot 'Em Up, that's the best title you can come up with.
That's a very accurate title for what happens in the film. I mean, the stunt work that they do. There's this one scene where he's running through like a building and there's like filing cabinets and this guy standing behind it and he sees him, he fires the gun and hits the cabinet, makes the drawer pop out and smack the guy in the face. I mean, just crazy stuff that happens in this film.
All right, so this is highly recommended by James for something a little off.
It's like a satire of every slam bang, big budget blockbuster action film you've ever seen, all rolled into one. It's totally sexist, it's totally racist, it's totally homophobic, and it's not apologetic about any of it. This is a great scene. This is in the aftermath of one of the best scenes in the film, a skydiving scene. He jumps out of a plane with no parachute, and guys with parachutes jump out after him to try to kill him. And so they're falling through the air, shooting each other with guns. It's like there's no kinetics, there's no sense of physics, wind resist, none of that. It's all out the window. It's just shooting as you're falling through the sky. And you can see the one guy has his chute open because that's the one he killed, grabbed him, and then opened his chute so he could survive. And you see all the other guys, he just shot him and killed him, just land wherever they were falling from. Boom, 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 like raindrops. It's hilarious.
Oh, Henry Thrun is with you. This movie was so good, he says.
It's such a guilty pleasure. I mean, I showed a friend this. I swear to God, I had never seen him laugh so hard in all his life as he was watching this. And the soundtrack is amazing. You've got the trash 80s style with like Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue and all the 80s guys doing the music. Because like, who else is going to want to do the music for a movie like this? You've got to have heavy metal.
This sounds like sort of along the lines of John Wick, except even maybe more extreme.
It truly is. But again, the notable points here are one of the rules that the writer and director Michael Davis observed was that there would be no explosions in the film. Everything is done gun centric. Okay. All the action is related with guns. There was no explosions or bombs or anything like that. No, it's all with guns.
Okay.
And Davis' inspiration for saving a baby in the film came from Chow Yun-fat's performance in John Woo's Hard Boiled from 1992.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I've learned about a lot of action films that's doing this is like a lot of them borrow from other stuff. They don't all, come and say, hey, let's just do this crazy thing. It's like, hey, I saw this. Let's do something like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a joke in there from Paul Giamatti's character, who's the hitman trying to get Smith and the baby. And he does this joke. He goes, why is a gun better than a wife? Because you can put a silencer on a gun. And it turns out that joke, Davis lifted that from an NRA website, which had a section for jokes.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Wow.
And the first gun that Smith uses in the film is a Walther PPKS, the gun usually used by James Bond. But the gun jammed and he calls it a piece of crap, which is an in-joke because of the fact that Clive Owens was once considered for the role of James Bond, but lost it out to Daniel Craig. So Owen almost became the new Bond.
There's so many stories like that in Hollywood where guys almost were cast in this role and then something happened and, became an iconic role that somebody else got.
Well, and again, the Bond thing just keeps on going because it turns out, well, at the time of the film's release, Monica Bellucci referred to her character as a trash Bond girl, which is ironic because 8 years later in 2015, she would become an actual Bond girl in Spectre.
So she went from the minor leagues to the major leagues.
Just
how about that?
Straight up, yes. Although the production of the film here, this came out in 2007, it was delayed for several years because of the Columbine shooting massacre.
Oh, yeah.
That held up because otherwise it probably would have been out probably around the same time as Gladiator was, but it got held up because of that tragedy. So that's something I learned. Over 200 different guns are used in the film, some of which were specifically made for the film.
Wow. Well, you got to figure if everybody's in here is shooting at everybody else and you got multiple characters with guns, it's probably not hard to believe that there'd be 200 different guns in this thing.
And the Owen character of Smith is a reference to Sergio Leone's Man with No Name spaghetti western trilogy. He's a man with no name. He's Mr. Smith. That's it. You never learn who he really is. So that's a little shout out to that. Mm-hmm. It was determined fairly early on that Clive Owen should play his role with a standard British accent, as it seemed to make the sarcastic character much cooler. I mean, he does make some great comments in this with that accent. There's this one shot where he shoots a guy right next to Paul Giamatti and it's like splatters on him. And so like Paul Giamatti's wiping himself off on the guy standing next to him. And he's like, that's a pretty good shot there, champ. And he's like, yeah, you want to see me spell my name in the snow. And with a British accent. It's just hilarious.
Oh, man.
But here's the kicker. This is the one that I saved for the end for you, Aaron, because you're going to love this. There are several references to Warner Brother animated cartoons throughout the film.
Really?
Mr. Smith is wisecracking and eats carrots like Bugs Bunny, while Hertz, Paul Giamatti's character, hunts like a darker Elmer Fudd. And Hertz also has a cell phone, which when it rings plays Ride of the Valkyries, which was parodied in What's Opera Doc in 1957 as Kill the Wabbit.
Yes, killed a rabbit. Well, okay,
And
now
all
I have
people
to
say
see
is
this
like this
movie.
movie plays like a Bugs Bunny cartoon almost. You know, you got the hunter trying to get him, and everything never goes his way.
I'm okay. I'm gonna have to see this movie now. You've talked me into it.
I knew once you heard that. Oh, wait a minute! If they're doing Warner Brothers style stuff, oh, I got to check
Yeah,
that out.
that's right. If this is Looney Tunes, I got to be there. Okay, number 3. This is
yes, Rabbit Hole. This is Shoot 'em Up we're talking about. Yes.
This one. I remember when this came out, but I never went and saw it. And I'm a big Kurt Russell fan. I guess it looked like maybe too silly to me or something. I can't remember why I never went and saw this.
Well,
but
it's funny you bring that up because my best friend since my school days, we met like back in 1984, and he went to this in theaters. He saw it live in theaters with another friend. And there's a scene right at the beginning. They show the Warner Brothers symbol, and then you hear Stallone go, "Okay, let's do it." And the music kicks in, and they said his friend almost got up and left because he thought Stallone was going to start rapping. And I'm like, dude, that would have been awesome. Stallone doing rap? Come on.
Wasn't Terry Garr a stripper in this? And it was like Stallone's sister.
No, Terry Hatcher.
Terry Hatcher, right? Not Terry Garr. I'm sorry. Yeah, Terry Hatcher.
Lane from the Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. Yes, but Sylvester Stallone's in this. Kurt Russell, Terry Hatcher, Jack Palance, James Byron, James Hong, Mark Alamo, and
you mean
Michael
the great
J. Pollard.
James Hong? You mean the great James Hong?
The great James Hong and Mark Alamo and Michael J. Pollard. Now, this movie you should see it, Aaron, because it has a lot of Star Trek connections. Terry Hatcher is one of the main characters, and she was on an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation shortly before this movie. Also, Mark Alamo had done a couple episodes of Next Generation before this, where he was a Romulan and another one a Cardassian. And then, of course, after this, he went on to become Gul Dukat on Star Trek: Deep Space Nine as like a long time running character on that series. So and the biggest one though is Michael J. Pollard, who again from the original series, Miri, he was the kid in the green army jacket, always talking to Miri.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Michael J. Pollard is in this film, so it's all this Star Trek alumni in the film.
He was also in Bonnie and Clyde, if memory serves correctly. So, yeah, see, these people being in Next Generation doesn't mean anything to me. That's not really Star Trek. But Pollard, I'll give credit because he was actually in the original series. So,
and again, once again, we see people with it Rabbit Hole. Tango and Cash is awesome. Cash drops the soap in the prison shower, and Tango freaks out when he bends down to get it. Cash straightens up and says, "I dropped the soap and don't play." No, I know the scene he's talking about. The shower scene is the classic scene. He drops it, he goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he goes, "Hey, it's soap, and don't flatter yourself, Pee-wee." "Well, I don't know you that well." "Don't worry, Cash. Someday the other one will drop." "Yeah, you just keep on talking, tripod." "Sure thing, Minnie Mouse."
Oh gosh.
And here's a great scene here with Byron James when they're trying to beat him for information. Again, just like Gladiator, this movie is so quotable. There's so many good scenes when they're put on trial and set up for a murder and put on trial for it. They got people going up on the stand testifying who they know are lying, and they're sitting there talking to each other while it happened. He goes, "When this is over, we got to pay Jabba the Hutt a little visit. I'll bring the chainsaw. I'll bring the beer." just so many quotable lines in this film, and little references to stuff too. Like there's a reference to Arnold in this movie. After they get convicted and put in prison, they're walking down to go to their cells, and there's one guy screaming out at him, and Russell goes, "You know Captain Dynaball here?" And then Stone goes, "Yes, I loved you in Conan the Barbarian." Got it, Arnold. There's another scene when they escape, and they're doing the zip line thing to get out, and one of them got held up because they were attacked, and so he goes, "What was keeping you? Just to stop for coffee and a Danish?" And then Stallone goes, "I hate Danish." That's a reference to his ex-wife Bridget Nielsen.
Oh, jeez.
Because she's Danish. I mean, just there's so many great lines in this film. I mean, just sit and run lines all day from Tango and Cash.
Oh my goodness.
the scene where Tango faces a truck that's coming at him was borrowed from the film Police Story from 1985, where Jackie Chan did the very same thing. But of course, Chan would later reference the zip line scene from the Escape from Prison in the third installment of the Police Story series called Super Cop in 1992. So they're swiping from each other.
Oh my goodness. Rabbit Hole says Kurt Russell and Stallone rewrote a lot of their lines. Both are awesome writers. Well, we know
Yes.
Stallone's a writer. I didn't know Kurt Russell did any writing, but I do know Stallone obviously is.
Well, here's an
writing
interesting
stuff
thing, though.
since Rocky.
Kurt Russell almost wasn't in this film. Patrick Swayze was originally cast to be Cash, but he dropped out because he decided to star in Roadhouse instead.
Which worked out okay for him.
For both of them, I would say.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, this movie is one of the first American movies to get a wide release in the former Soviet bloc after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Yes. Bootleg
There's American
VHS
culture
tapes
for
became
you.
hot sellers in Russia, and Byron James, the guy who's being hung up over here, who was one of the bad guys, once claimed he never felt more like a celebrity than when he was swarmed by crowds of people in Ukraine who recognized him from the movie as the villain.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh.
Now, I don't just bring you information, folks, but I also dispel misinformation, because there was a rumor that went around for a long time that Arnold Schwarzenegger was once considered to play Cash, so they could have him star opposite Stallone, the two biggest, action stars of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't true at all. That was a complete lie, and both Stallone and Schwarzenegger have come on and said, no, that was never true. We were never good. It was never going to happen that way, and so we had to wait another, 30 years for them to get together and do, the Expendables when they're old. I guess they figured, we're old now. If we're going to do a movie, we better do it now before one of us is dead.
Well, my understanding was, I don't know if they disliked one another, but they were definitely in competition with one another. Oh
yeah, they were always,
as
action
making
stars. Needling jokes. If you're watching their films, they make little needling jokes at each other all the time. Like I said, in here, yes, I loved you in Conan the Barbarian. That was a shot at Arnold.
Right.
And let's see. Jeffrey Boehm, who worked on the scripts for two of the Lethal Weapon films, was one of the writers who rewrote the script during this movie's troubled production. But because he either didn't like the draft he wrote or the film, he refused to be credited. It's like, I don't want to take credit for this. So he pulled a J. Michael Straczynski with One More Day. It's like, yeah, I was involved in it, but I don't want no credit. I don't want to own this.
That's when they drop in the old Hollywood Alan Smithy name as the that's they always used for.
Well, this film had a lot of problems, especially like directorial. The director, Andy Konlash, I know I'm going to murder this name, Konklaskowski, was replaced towards the end of the principal photography by Albert Magnoli. And in his book, Andy says that the reason he was fired was because he wanted to give the film a more serious tone than the producers wanted. And that as such, his relationship with producer John Peters became ultimately untenable. So he was kicked out. However, Andy has nothing but praise for Sylvester Stallone, who he states was a constant voice of reason on the set.
Mm. Interesting.
So this is a movie that almost didn't get made.
Well, maybe it wouldn't have been that bad of a thing if it hadn't, but it did make your top list here, so it must be.
And there is one other factor here. In the film, there is a scene in a quarry where they have this super powered RV, and there's a monster truck that comes roaring out to fight them. And that monster truck is, in fact, the Bigfoot monster truck. It's been repainted and the decals were removed, but the truck's original owner, Bob Chandler, came out and said that is actually the Bigfoot monster truck in that movie.
How about that? So you guys that are a monster car people, the legendary Bigfoot. How about that? All righty. Well, how about this? Moving right along.
Another one of my top 10 favorites of all time is this movie. I love Point Break. Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves are the epitome of cool. They carry this film. I mean, it may seem ridiculous on its face, surfers robbing banks, and an FBI agent goes undercover to find out who they are. It sounds ridiculous on its face, but man, they really sell it, and they just their chemistry on set, the action sequences, the crazy stuff they get into, it makes it all work. I mean, how believable is a movie when you have Gary Busey as the senior FBI agent who's supposed to be the stable one?
The great Gary Busey, you mean?
The great Gary Busey, yes.
Yes, exactly.
We got Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey, Lori Petty, and Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers has a role in this film.
I know. I remember seeing the ads for this, and I was like, I was like, are you kidding me? The premise for this film I thought was so absurd. I just was like, I passed on it. But you're telling me it was good.
Richie Dupier says people used to call me Bodie. What? Because you had long hair, or what? I mean, what? Were you out there surfing? Why did they call you Bodie? Because that was Pat Swayze's character. But again, Patrick Swayze was an accomplished skydiver and took part in the big skydiving scenes in this movie. He made 55 jumps in total. And according to Gary Busey, he was so crazy about skydiving that he badgered him until he gave in and agreed to go skydiving with him after the filming was done. So he badgered Gary Busey into skydiving with him because he was so crazy about skydiving.
Well, he could have badgered me until I died, and I wouldn't have done it.
And for many of the surfing scenes in the film, Patrick Swayze refused to use a stunt double as he never had one for the fight scenes or the car chases. So another guy who's like a Tom Cruise type, like, I'll just do all the stunt work myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd have to know how to surf to do your own surfing stunts, right? I mean, you couldn't just go out there on a board and fake it.
You'd think so. But it's just, Patrick Swayze, man, he's man's man. He just out there doing all that crazy stuff in all those films. And let's see here. Keanu Reeves observed real FBI agents in LA to study for his role. He also practiced with a UCLA quarterback coaches to help him with the football scenes he has to play in the film, where he's playing the football on the beach. And so that shows you, even back in the day, Keanu was like a totally driven guy. He was a very method actor. He wanted to really get it right, which is why he's so successful today, I'm sure.
Well, I was going to say, he's like managed to outlive all of his peers, at least in terms of box office success over the years. And it seems to be, hotter than ever with all these John Wick films most recently. But, I was never a huge Keanu Reeves fan, but I have become one in recent years. So,
well, here's something unofficially uncredited because of unresolved issues with the Writers Guild of America. Sound a little familiar with what's going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
James Cameron and Catherine Bigelow rewrote the final script together for this film, but they were officially uncredited because of the Writers Guild issues. And this was Catherine Bigelow's highest grossing film until Zero Dark 30 in 2012.
Wasn't Cameron and Bigelow married at one point?
Yes, they were.
Is she a director or producer now? Producer, right?
I think she produces mostly, but she's director and producer. She's done both.
Okay.
And of course, now as you learn here, some writing as well. So let's see what else we got here. In one of the classic scenes, which to me is like the best scene in the film, is the foot chase. There's this foot chase between him and Patrick Swayze. It turns out that Patrick Swayze is not the one wearing the Reagan mask during the foot chase sequence. Instead, it was his stunt double, Scott Wilder, who did it because Swayze was in Europe doing a presser for Ghost at the time.
He was doing a presser for something else while they're still shooting. These must have been pickup shots after the major filming was complete. Because, why would he be out of town while they're shooting the movie? It doesn't make any sense unless they were coming in to do some...
Well, it might have been some contractual obligation thing that he couldn't get out of.
No, that's true. That could be.
But let's see. And Bigelow fought to have Keanu Reeves cast as Johnny Utah. She insisted she wouldn't even do the film unless he was in it, and because the studio was more interested in looking at a higher profile actor playing the role, like Johnny Depp. So another case of wow, who could have been these characters? Well, it was almost Johnny Depp and Patrick Swayze.
Well, I think Johnny Depp would have pulled it off just as well, probably better. He's a better actor, I think. But
and then there are actors who kind of lost out from this film because Elizabeth Berkley of Saved by the Bell and Showgirls fame had a small scene in the movie, but it was cut out in the final cut.
Poor Elizabeth Berkley, man.
She hit her peak on Saved by the Bell, and it was all downhill after that.
I know, it was like that. The stripper movie was supposed to make her a star, and it just made her a laughing stock.
That's right. But here, the song "Nobody Rides for Free" by Rat was recorded especially for the film's soundtrack and does not appear on any of their studio albums, but is included on the band's greatest hit album, Rat and Roll 81-91. And the song was also the final single released by the band with the classic band lineup. Wow. So that was the last hurrah for the original group of Rat. And just for fun, I don't know why somebody felt this was the need to put it on an informational website, but they said in this film, the F word is said 105 times. Why that was necessary information, I do not know. Maybe it was uncommon back in the day back then for a movie to have it that much. I don't know.
Sounds like Midnight Run, with De Niro and Charles Grodin. I mean, De Niro was dropping F-bombs about every 10 seconds in that film.
Yeah, this right here, great scene at the end when it all comes down after everything that went down, people died, everything went bad. And then, of course, it comes down to Johnny versus Bodie in the end. Yep. And there you are. And I just love that shot there with the driving rain. And again, just so many good lines in that film, so many good lines.
Wait a minute, it never rains in Southern California. I mean,
no, they're supposed to be in Australia right there.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, my gosh, haven't they heard the song?
Because the whole reason he was able to find Bodie after he escaped was because of something he had told him earlier, which is he was waiting for this thing called the 50-year storm in Australia, where you get like super swells with surfing. It's like, I'm going to ride those waves, the 50-year storm. And he even tells him, he goes, miss you by about a week in Fiji. But I knew you wouldn't miss the 50-year storm, Bodie. What a shame. You're finally here and your waves are totally crashed out. He goes, just waiting for my set. See, just so many great lines in the film.
Been a great way to end this movie is have them surf this 50-foot wave and then get eaten by a great white.
Well, it kind of almost does that. What happens is they fight, and then Johnny fakes it out to lose so he can handcuff him. And Bodie is telling him, like, all right, fine. He goes, I'll pay. He goes, I'll go to prison, I'll pay. And Johnny Utah gets his guy. Good for you, Johnny. But look at it. And he tells him how, he goes, let me take one wave before you take me. And he goes, what am I going to do? I got cliffs on both sides. I'm not going to paddle to New Zealand. So he lets him go because he knows what's going to happen. He's going to die. These waves are crazy. I mean, they'll kill you. And so he goes out and then the cops show, they're like, hey, you let him go. And he goes, no, I didn't. And then they show Pat wiping out. And the cop's like, we'll get him when he comes back in. And he goes, he's not coming back. And then there's a scene where he's just walking along the beach in the rain and he pulls out his badge and he throws it and it goes in the water, just like Dirty Harry at the end of Dirty Harry. That's how the movie ends. The Dirty Harry ending.
I don't know. A 20-foot great white would have just capped it perfectly for me. Slow-mo coming up there.
20th Century Fox had made plans for a sequel to this film in the summer of '93. A script had been written and was in pre-production, but despite the film grossing over $90 million worldwide, the studio decided to scrap the project. Which, $90 million in 1991 dollars would be about $400 million today.
No, that was a good box office, but your lead guy is dead unless he's not dead. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. Is that's the only thing I think is how could you do a movie without Pat? It's but he wipes out and dies, or does he? Is that how they were going to play that? It's he somehow survived that? Okay, but nope, it was not meant to be. Although they did end up remaking the film, I think it was 2015.
Yeah, but that was a complete
and that
bomb,
was horrible, horrible.
Hmm.
There is only one Point Break, and it is Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze.
All right, well. here's a film by the great John Carpenter. Look at that.
This is one that Aaron might actually remember.
A white hot night of hate, assault on precinct 13.
The gang that swore a blood oath to destroy precinct 13 and every cop in it.
Ja, ja, ja.
And again, John Carpenter wrote and directed this, you know, and he did the score for it as well. I mean, that classic music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it drills into you. And I just love it because to me, this to me is like one of those films that kind of sets the stage for what the 80s would become for action movies.
Well, it just cracks me up his ability to, no matter what his budget was, to make even a big budget film turn it into a B movie. It's like in his blood, you know?
Well, that's funny you bring that up because, you know, following the release of his first feature, Dark Star, in '74, Carpenter was approached by a group of investors who gave him carte blanche to make whatever kind of picture he wanted, albeit with a very limited budget. Although Carpenter wanted to make a Western, he knew that he wouldn't have the resources to make a period piece. He wrote this film as a highly stylized modern-day Western, essentially remaking Rio Bravo, which was directed by Carpenter's hero, Howard Hawks. Carpenter acknowledges the debt to Hawks and Rio Bravo by using the pseudonym John T. Chance as the film editor's credit, which was the name of John Wayne's character in Rio Bravo.
Interesting. Well, I know Carpenter dropped out of USC. Dark Star was his started off as his student film, and he dropped out and finished it, which is basically hippies in space getting wasted. But I guess he made a good choice because he has
acknowledged that the Night of the Living Dead was the influence for the marauding street gang, because just like Romero's zombies, they're completely dehumanized. They hardly talk, and they seem supernatural in their ongoing resilience and determination.
Hot night of fate.
There's so many. Again, just this movie. It's if you take it in the context of the times, 1976. I mean, the scene when they blow away a little girl on screen. I mean, you've never seen anything like that in a movie before. Today we would just watch it all like, no big deal. But back then, that was a big deal. Here we are at the end of the film with Austin Stoker and Darwin Jostin, who's a criminal, and they're trying to use the last 3 bullets to hit a tank of like some kind of flammable gas, so it'll kill everybody in this room. And you can see he's trying to hold something to hold them back to protect themselves while he's trying to take the shots. It's just a great tense scene. I just love this film. It's so slow in the pacing at first. You think you're gonna watch like some police drama or something maybe, but then once people start dying, man, it just ratchets right up to 10.
People are dropping like flies.
That's right. But here's something, again, another tidbit I found for you, Aaron, that I think you're gonna like. The story that Austin Stoker's character Isham Bishop tells about his father sending him to a police station when he was 6 years old with a note is actually a true story told by Alfred Hitchcock about his childhood.
Wow. The great Hitchcock. How about that? Gets in a little reference in this movie. Wow.
And Carpenter said he based the score to this film on Lalo Schifrin's score to Dirty Harry and Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty funny. What a combination. All right.
Here's another thing is
wait, there's more.
How films can affect people. As a result of this film, Donald Pleasance would appear in John Carpenter's films Halloween, Prince of Darkness, and Escape from New York because his daughters were a big fan of this movie. Because his daughters loved Assault on Precinct 13, he became an actor in so many Carpenter films after that.
Wow, how about that?
And the captions showing the date and time throughout the movie were done that way to give the film a feeling of a documentary.
Yeah, I can see that.
And let's see. Carpenter wrote the score in 3 days. He made three to five separate pieces of music and edited them accordingly. It didn't become available to buy until 2003 through the French label Record Makers. So you couldn't even get that soundtrack until 2003. So you had to wait 30 years to get the soundtrack.
Well, if you only spent 3 days on it, maybe didn't feel like you needed to.
I gotta give Rabbit Hole. He is correct about that. That is very true.
Oh, the Immigrant Song was a tune. It wasn't.
No. The one after that.
Oh, Donald Pleasance could add gravitas to a hemorrhoid commercial.
He could.
All righty. Let's move on.
Yes.
To the great Jackie Chan.
Now, this one's special because this was the first Jackie Chan movie I ever saw, and I saw it in theaters. So I was extremely excited. And basically, it's about a young guy from the East who comes to New York to his uncle's bodega, basically. And, he tries to help him out while he's there, and he becomes the target of a gang in New York. And, of course, action ensues from that point on.
I love how the tagline is just totally is self-reflexive and breaks the what do you say, the fourth wall? No fear, no stunt man, no equal.
And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the film. It's like that's why you watch a Jackie Chan film. You watch it for that reason. No stunt man. He's doing it all himself. Which, if we show my image, the image that goes with the poster here.
Oh. My face looked like that last time I tried to do this.
There it is. This is why we love Jackie Chan. Water skiing with no skis.
Yeah, I was doing it with skis, and I wasn't having too much success. Many, many moons ago.
That's right. But let's see. They filmed it in Vancouver, British Columbia on October 6, 1994. Jackie Chan broke his right ankle while attempting the scene where he jumps onto a hovercraft. Despite the injuries, he was present at the premiere of the Legend of the Drunken Master and at the Vancouver International Film Festival that night. Later in production of this movie, director Stanley Tong sprained his ankle, completing the movie on crutches, and Francisco Yip also broke her leg while filming the scene where she rides a motorbike across the tops of parked cars. She insisted on returning to the set after her leg was plastered at the hospital. 2 stuntmen also broke their legs during the filming of the motorcycle chase. So, I mean, this is a film that's like everybody's getting jacked up. Even the director.
Who's left to actually do the stunts by the end of this movie? Everybody's like in the hospital with broken bones. Oh my god!
And this film is considered Jackie Chan's breakthrough performance in Hollywood. This is what got him on the map. Was this film? Pardon me. So yeah. And let's see. Let me get a drink. Whew.
All right, we got one more.
Yeah.
Is there more? Is there more Jackie? Okay, here we go. This one I've seen. I think we've all seen this one.
Yeah. Now I'm sure everybody was expecting this one from either me or Aaron. You figured one of us was going to have this, so I figured for once I'll be the one that does the obvious stuff. Here it is, of course. You can't talk about action movies and not mention something from Arnold, just like you can't mention animation and not talking about something from Disney. So, of course, if you're going to talk about Arnold, you got to talk about the movie that made him what he is. And right here it is, The Terminator, folks. Everybody knows this film. Everybody loves this film. Everybody quotes this film.
Well, he had done Conan.
We got Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lyndall Hamilton, Michael Biehn, Paul Winfield, another Star Trek connection for you. Lance Hendrickson, Dick Miller. Dick Miller is in the film.
The great Dick Miller.
Bill Paxton has a role in the film. Brian Thompson is in the film. I mean, it's just.
Wait a minute, Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton was one of the punks at the beginning of the movie.
He's one of the biker punks that he takes out early in the film. Yes.
Yeah.
While shooting the film, James Cameron often resorted to what he called guerrilla filmmaking, as a way of getting around acquiring permits needed to film certain scenes. This involved the production crew and actors quickly arriving at a specified location, shooting the scene, and leaving before the police arrived. This was also used for reshoots, with Cameron even calling and waking Arnold at once at 3 a.m. to meet him at a location already in full costume to quickly reshoot a scene.
I did a little bit of that in film school. We did a lot of guerrilla filmmaking because we were supposed to get permits for everything, and we did not always get permits.
But here's how they play with time so much in here, and they make it all full circle here with this. In the beginning of the movie, a Terminator drives over a toy semi-truck and in the future. And then towards the end of the film, the Terminator is run over by the same model of semi-truck.
Geek Avenger for $2. What made this movie was Linda Hamilton's tatas.
Well, I don't think it was just that. I mean, there were some other things in there that also...
It is interesting because he was Conan 1980, which was supposed to make him a big star, and it made him, but not really as big as. And then he did like Conan the Destroyer, and that was kind of It wasn't until, you're right, this movie is what catapulted him to superstardom, because it was actually a really good movie with or without him. He just happened to be in it.
Well, again, as I've done with pretty much all the other films except for Jackie Chan, because who would ever want to try to replace Jackie Chan doing what he does?
Yes.
O.J. Simpson was considered for the Terminators, but producers feared he was too nice to be taken seriously as a cold-blooded killer. In 1990, Dark Horse Comics printed issues using his likeness.
Really?
It was prophetic. Oh God, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. O.J. Simpson as the Terminator. Oh no, he's too nice. He couldn't be a cold-blooded killer.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, well, he proved them all wrong, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Oh my gosh!
And of course, if you show the image I have with it, of course, right here, one of the greatest scenes ever. It's right up there with Hitchcock's classic shower scene.
I love this movie poster so much. I forgot about your extra.
The birth of a catchphrase that would haunt Arnold for the rest of his days.
Yep.
I'll be back. There it is, right there, folks. And the famous line of "I'll be back" was originally scripted as "I'll come back," but it wouldn't sound as good. That "I'll be back" is definitely a much better way to go. I'm glad that he altered it. Michael Biehn almost didn't get the role of Kyle Reese because in his first audition, he spoke in a Southern accent as a result of working on a part of a stage production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, in which he also didn't get the role. So during a talk with Bihn's agent, the producers mentioned they liked his performance, but they didn't like the accent. And so the agent was puzzled. He goes, "What accent are you talking about?" And so, after they cleared it up, producers called Biehn back in for another audition, and then he got the part because he wasn't using the accent.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Why you wouldn't catch yourself and pull, I don't know. I guess you're just so used to talking that way. You probably didn't even think about it.
Exactly. Let's see. Lance Hendrickson in 2008 in an interview said that Cameron had no agent and was either living in his car or sleeping on the couch of a friend when he wrote the script for the film. Cameron had actually fired his agent because he didn't like the story ideas Cameron had conceived for this film. Which shows you agents are worthless. What do they know?
Oh my gosh. What does anybody know? It's like trying to predict what a hit's going to be in music, film, comics. It's impossible. You just don't know.
Well, again, just as you saw with Catherine Bigelow, Cameron was married to her. He was also, if people remember, married to Linda Hamilton for a while. And here's the thing. At the beginning of the film, Sarah Connor receives a message on her answering machine breaking a date. The voice who does that is the voice of James Cameron. And then years later, he got married to her and then they subsequently divorced.
That's right. Well, they got divorced and she became
in real life.
They got married, she got divorced, and then she became a lesbian. So What are you going to do?
Wow, I
Probably
don't
wouldn't have
know.
worked
I don't know. I don't know if a guy want to have that on his head, saying, "Yeah, I made that a lesbian." I don't know.
Well, wasn't that was also a scene from Seinfeld where George's like ex-girlfriend becomes a lesbian, but then Kramer brings her back. So he's like, I turned him into lesbian, and Kramer brings him back.
Well, as we all know, Arnold's kind of become a bit of a mensch in recent years, but he was actually kind of a bit of a mensch even back in the day, because it says here he allegedly he had delayed the starting of the filming by 2 days because he insisted that the custom leather jacket made that he's wearing there wasn't manly enough.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
It's funny because he probably obviously was a much bigger name than James Cameron was at the time, but boy, that flipped awfully fast where Cameron became the man, and Arnold was like, oh, James, you're my buddy. Put me in another one of your films. Oh.
Well, here's the thing too: is just like with Keanu Reeves in Point Break, where he like studied with FBI agents and had trained with a football coach for the football scenes. Arnold got a little method with this. He worked with guns every day for a month to prepare for the role. The first 2 weeks of filming, he practiced weapon stripping and reassembling blindfolded until the motions were automatic, like a machine. He spent hours at the shooting range and practicing with different weapons without blinking or looking at them while reloading or cocking. He also had to be ambidextrous. He practiced different moves up to 50 times a day. He wound up garnering a compliment in Soldier of Fortune magazine for his realistic handling of the guns on camera. Whereas the magazine usually blasted movies for how poorly they do that. But yeah, he was praised for like, wow, he really handled those guns really well.
It's amazing. We're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger as a method actor.
Yes. Blindfolding himself and stripping and reassembling guns.
Yeah, well,
just for a part, just so he could have the part. Let's see. Stallone was considered for the Terminator, but coincidentally, a year after, James Cameron and Stallone wrote Rambo: First Blood Part 2 together. And there was a competition between Stallone and Schwarzenegger's success in action movies about who would win in a battle, Rambo or the Terminator.
Terminator. Sorry, Rambo. Going Terminator all day long on that one.
This info is just for me because it speaks to something from my youth. The teaser trailer for this film was narrated by the great Peter Cullen, best known to fans as the voice of robotic hero Optimus Prime from Transformers.
Wow, how about that?
So you got an actual voice of a robot to do the teaser narrations for the film.
Wow. What else is there to say? What that is. I mean, Terminator is such a tremendous film, and of course.
And what's the moral of the story? Machines are not our friends.
They are not.
They are not our friends.
AI is not our friend. No artificial intelligence.
Right. Do not believe them. When they say we're here for your convenience, they are not.
No. I'm going to dismantle my computer right after the show. Going back to total old school. Telephone, smoke signals, whatever it takes.
Aaron isn't even going to use a calculator anymore. He's going to use an abacus.
Exactly. Fearsome Bullet says, I still watch Cobra till this day.
That's a good one.
That's right. Crime is a disease. He's the cure.
Cobra,
okay.
The strong arm of the law.
It's amazing. This was difficult because you start picking action films, you start realizing how many you're missing, from your list. You go, oh yeah, what about that? Oh yeah, that was really good. And what about that? But here we go. Here's my attempt. Because I ultimately looked at it and said, what movies can I watch over and over again and not get tired of? So that was sort of my criteria as opposed to saying which ones are the best. So here we go. I think number 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. For me, we're going to work from the bottom up.
Nice.
True Lies, another James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger collaboration. Now, I'm not going to say that Jamie Lee Curtis's body in this film had nothing to do with my picking it, but holy smokes, whew, was she in shape? Let's just put it that way. But this movie, of course, is like a takeoff on a James Bond film. It's a great sense of humor. It's Tom Arnold's only good performance. So there's that.
Also, I believe it's Elijah Dushku's very first film.
Which guy is that? The
daughter.
Oh, the daughter.
Elijah Dushku. Yes. Her
last name is Dushku.
Yes, Elijah Dushku. I know, it's sad. It's sad.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure she was never teased about that in school. Not
yeah,
once.
I'm guessing no. But this has a great sense of humor. It has great lines in it. You know, she's like, "Did you ever kill anybody?" Yes, but they were all bad. You know, stuff like that. And
what's her name? Oh, now I'm blanking. Tia Carrera.
Yes, Tia Carrera was in this. And Bill Paxton.
Yes, as a youth car salesman.
Right, exactly. Pretending to be a private eye to get the ladies. Oh, this was the
best line he has. The vet gets them wet.
Charlton Heston's actually in this. He's like the leader of the
organization.
The organization, right? He has the eye patch and everything, and so I actually love this film. And Shelley, believe it or not, Shelley, she likes movies that some people would consider some of the most sexist films. Like this, obviously the scene with Jamie Lee Curtis. She loves Stripes, which is not exactly a chick flick, and so it always cracks me up sometimes when she'll say, "Hey, I want to see this movie." I'm like, "Really? Why?" But so she loves this movie. I love this movie. It's one I could watch over and over again because it's just.
She probably loves it more for stuff like the scene towards the end with Paxton where she puts the right in her scene. He goes, "I'm just going to do them right here, okay, honey?" He's like, "Go for it." Oh God.
He's himself.
Fear. It's not an option.
Oh, now this is a good one. This is one of those kind of it's not too heavy. It's pretty light adventure comedy, but you know, it's easy to watch, and so there it is. That's on the bottom of my list here. All right, this is the one I went back and forth with a couple films like Speed and some other ones, but I ended up going with this one because it is infinitely watchable, and that of course is Die Hard,
the world's greatest Christmas movie.
And there we go, back to the controversy. I originally fought adamantly against this being a Christmas movie, but after more recent viewing in the last couple of years, I did notice that there's actual Christmas music worked into the musical score of the film, not just playing in the background like it's part of the party, but it's actually part of the score of the film. And at that point I said, yeah, I guess it is in some sense a Christmas film. So there you go. When you integrate,
but it's also a great action movie too.
Yes. I mean, my argument was always it could stand alone as an action film. So therefore that it's not a Christmas movie. The element of being Christmas to it is superficial. It has nothing to do with the story. It could have been just a regular office party, could have been anything. But the fact that they integrated Christmas music into the score of the film, I've got to give it at least some credence. Yeah, Fearsome Bullet says I'm neutral in this argument,
but it's just so many things in the film. The whole reason he goes out there is because he wants to be with the family. Why? For Christmas. It's a Christmas party at her office. The scene where he pulls the gun and kills Hans. He taped it using Christmas themed tape to tape it on his back. When he kills the guy and puts him in the elevator, now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho! I mean, there's so many Christmas things in it. It's just I can't see it as not being a Christmas movie.
I'm like Fearsome Bullets here says he's neutral on it. I've become neutral. I was adamantly arguing against it. Now I'm neutral because I can see either side of it now. I think there's enough evidence there to support it being a Christmas film, but I also think it's like I said, I think it's a movie that could easily be restructured and could have taken place at any time during the year. So being Christmas, they made the most of it being Christmas time, but it didn't seem essential to the plot to me. But obviously that's how they wrote it, so there must have been some intent there. But, yippee-yi-yay, yippee-ki-yay, mother.
That's right. Welcome to the party, pal.
That's right. Okay. Now we're getting into some serious stuff. Oh, that's not as big as I'd hoped. Oh, well. You guys, this will not come as a shock to anybody. This was a little bit more difficult to categorize because it is kind of a monster movie, obviously, but it has all the elements of an action adventure film with a monster in it. So, and it's not in space. There's no sci-fi elements to it. So I said, you know what? This classifies as a jungle action movie, and I'm going to stick to that. I love this movie. John McTiernan. Someone actually said recently, or I read this recently, that the reason The Rock, what's his name? What's The Rock's name? The wrestler. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson.
Right. The reason that he's not as big a star as Arnold was is because Arnold sought out the best directors to work with for his movies. And so almost all of the movies he was in, with the exception, there's a few, obviously some not great ones here and there, but in the 80s anyway, I mean, he's working with Cameron, he's working with John McTiernan, he's working with, who's the director of Ghostbusters? I can't think of his name, the comedic director.
Ivan Reitman?
Reitman, yeah. He did films with Ivan Reitman, like Kindergarten Cop. So Arnold was always, Arnold may be a lousy actor, but he has a huge, obviously great physical presence, and he was always working in good films with good directors. So they were always getting the best out of him that they could. Yeah. And so that's why we have so many really good Arnold films, but there's also a few out there that are guilty pleasures, which we'll get to in a little bit. Of course, this has the Jesse the Body Ventura line, "I ain't got time to bleed." As Leg Kick points out there, I ain't got time to bleed. I love this movie, man. I think it's great. I could watch it over and over again.
And again, create another great franchise that has endured for decades.
And Cameron takes some credit for the design of this character. He claims that he was on a plane with Stan Winston, and Winston was trying to come up with a design for the alien, and Cameron recommended that he put some mandibles on him or something. And so that's how the story goes, at least according to Cameron.
Well, if you believe Cameron, he's basically responsible for every successful film in the last 40 years.
Well, that's why I say you kind of put it with a grain of salt, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but all right, here we go. Speaking of guilty pleasures, James, you knew this one was coming. Yeah, there we go. This is one of the most poorly written films I may have, and Jeff, I'm sorry, Jeff Loeb, and he knows it, because I think Jeff Loeb actually just came up with a story. He didn't actually write the screenplay. But oh my gosh, it is so absurd, so over the top, and yet so wonderful. I mean, what is he? Does he kill like 150 guys or 200 guys by himself when he invades that compound? It's just incredible carnage. And
this was the movie I was referencing when I said that, one man against a horde of bad guys with a single gun that never runs out of ammo. This is the movie I was referencing to.
There's so many corny lines in it, and there's so many Tommy Chong's daughter.
This movie is such corn. I'm surprised they didn't have Jean-Claude Van Damme star in it.
Exactly. But it's like the whole thing with Tommy Chong's daughter. She's like a stewardess, but she also is a pilot, thankfully, because then it flies him to the island. That was nice. And then he goes into this. You remember when they drive into that ammo dump, that hidden ammo dump or whatever that's in this city or whatever, they get all the weapons and everything. Okay, when they go in, it's like, I think it's still light out and it's the streets are dry. They come out at night and the cops are after them and the road is completely wet because that's an old film trick. Whereas like at nighttime, you wet down the roads so that you get better reflection of the lights coming off the street and it looks cooler, you know, and when there's explosions and stuff. And it's like, despite the fact that it actually hadn't rained at all, but there they were on the wet streets and, you know, and what was the line where he takes
I guess a bunch of hobos must have had to relieve themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now we'd believe that today, but back then, and you know, what was that, 85 or something? I don't think that was quite the problem that it is now. But when he had the guy from the Warriors, that little Weasley guy, and he has him by a leg over the cliff, and he goes, Matrix, remember you said you'd kill me last? And he goes, I lied, and he drops him. And then he goes back to the girl, and she's like, what happened to so and so? And he goes, I let him go. I mean, there's just line after line after line like that in this movie, and just the when he fights the guy from the Road Warrior, the guy who played Wes in the Road Warrior, down in the underneath this compound, and he punches him or throws him into the electric fence. He gets fried electric like this, and then he just comes out and punches Arnold without, it doesn't even stun him, you know, that he got hit by the electric fence. And oh my gosh, it's just one thing after another. You got to love that movie. And a young Alyssa Milano before she went nuts and started crocheting masks to prevent the spread of COVID. So a lot of good stuff in this one. Yeah, there it is. Let off some steam, Bennett. When he throws that pipe right through him and the steam comes blowing out. Well, you know, Arnold was cool. I actually got my, I was down at film school at the time this movie came out. And I got my hair cut just so I look like Arnold right here. That sort of faux military cut. I had that haircut when I had hair. There was a time, James, when I actually had hair. I didn't have the guns, but I did have the hair. So, all right, here we go. How has this one not been picked yet? I don't know. But here, my number 2 action movie of all time. So obvious, and yet how do I not pick it, right? How can you not? It's clearly one of the greatest action adventure movies of all time, if not the greatest, depends on who you talk to. Great.
Well, one scene alone makes it the greatest. The scene with the guy with the sword swinging around, he pull out the gun, bang, and it's just, I'm done.
Well, it's just, you know, this is actually the movie that saved Spielberg's career, because he had done 1941. So he does Jaws, becomes a, you know, major star, does Close Encounters, solidifies his stardom, can do whatever he wants in Hollywood, chooses to do 1941, which is a colossal box office disaster that cost a fortune to make. So now he's on everybody's blacklist. His buddy George Lucas says, hey, do you want to direct this film? He's like, yes. And of course, it becomes a sensation, and Spielberg is back to being Spielberg, and he never looked back. But if you look at this movie poster, look what it says. Indiana Jones, the new hero from the creators of Jaws and Star Wars. It doesn't say from Spielberg and George Lucas, because they weren't the names that they are now. They were still developing those reputations. And so they couldn't just put their names on there and have people go, oh yeah, that's the guy that directed Jaws, or, oh, that's the guy that he did Star Wars. So they actually had to put those things up there. And I remember this movie kind of sneaking out, and I was totally unaware, number one, that Harrison Ford was a star. Oh, that's Han Solo. I didn't even know that. I had no idea that George Lucas or Spielberg were even attached to it until I went and saw it. And it just became this sensation, right? And then I went and saw it and realized, oh my gosh, this is Spielberg and George Lucas. No wonder, you know, it's so good. But
well,
anyway.
Richie Dupe has some sympathy for you, Aaron, right here. Richie Dupe's got some sympathy for you.
Don't feel bad. EVS had hair in 1993. Yeah, well, actually, did I still have hair in 93? I did. I didn't really start losing my hair noticeably where I had to shave my head until I was after the age of 40. So I hung in there for a while. Geek Avengers trying to defend 1941. I don't know if I can go along with you, Geek. I don't think there's one redeeming thing in that film. Even the stuff that's supposed to be funny, like Belushi and Aykroyd, isn't all that funny. But anyway, so there you go. Raiders is my number 2. Can you guess what my number 1 action film of all time is? You're about to find out. The Road Warrior. Now, when I was in film school,
why not? Since you're the man who did the Road Warrior Archie cover, of course,
it's got to be me. I created a character, and I did like an 8 or 9 page story. I've got to have that someplace, called The Last Something or Other. I basically ripped off the Road Warrior and put it into a comic book with mutants instead of like, just crazy gangs. It was like, mutated creatures. I'm gonna have to see if I can find that. I did it when I was like 19 or something. But anyway, this movie, I was just blown away. And this is when I became a big Mel Gibson fan. Obviously, after this, he was like my acting
this is what
hero.
Made Mel a star was this movie.
Oh, heck yeah. And George Miller, of course, no one really knew who George Miller was. But George Miller ended up being obviously a fantastic director. For the most part, he had a few misses in there, but everybody does. But yeah, this movie was, the action sequences in this movie, and I'm not saying no one ever did this before, but so I can't say it was the first time this was used, but it's the first time that I ever noticed it, and a lot of people noticed it. He mounted cameras onto the cars. So during the chase scenes, you were always in perpetual motion. You were in the chase scene with the cars and the trucks. And it wasn't, helicopter shots or cameras on the side of the road. You were on those cars moving with that caravan during that incredible last sequence. And it's just amazing film technique. And the fact that he came back and did the new Road Warrior film, what was it? Fury Road? Is that right?
Yeah, Fury Road was the new one.
Yeah, with Tom Hardy. And that was excellent. And I think he was he's in his 80s now, so it's not like he's a young guy and still be able to pull off a movie like that. It's pretty amazing. But when I was in film school, we dissected this film. Like when you first get in your first semester, they have before you break off into your screenwriting classes and your sound classes and directing classes, they have these big sort of overview class, like Film 101. Everybody had to take, right? So the entire class would be in this. It was kind of the introductory to film, sort of a film production sort of class. And they took the Road Warrior and broke it down like shot by shot. And we just went through it by just how the incredible precision that it was made with. And it's just, it really is a cinematic masterpiece. And they were saying at the time, and we were all kind of scoffing at it until we broke the film down, but they were like, this movie is a better action film than Raiders of the Lost Ark. And everybody's like, oh, come on. And then we sat there and watched it again and broke it down and realized, you know what? It is. It's not as pleasant to watch. It's a rough movie in a lot of ways, but
no.
So it's always stayed with me since then as being the best action adventure film, I guess you'd call it, that I've ever seen. But anyway, there's old Wes. That's the character he played in The Road Warrior, but he was also in Commando. He's the dude that fought Bennett, who fought Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando.
Yeah, they cannibalized a lot of football uniforms for this movie.
They sure did, man. Look at that. Especially in Australia, because they play Australian rules football in Australia, so they wouldn't have American football pads laying around. Very interesting.
Well, yeah, that because again, it's Australia, but I remember those Foster's commercials. Remember the Foster beer commercials?
Yeah,
And there's like the one where there's like a giant steak sizzling on a grill, and they put a little piece of parsley on it, and he goes, salad, beer, and then bing, bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing, beer. And then there's the one a guy wipes
Foster's.
out on a surfboard. He goes, ah! He goes, tourist, beer. You know, and then the one
Foster's. It's Australian for beer, mate.
yeah, and then there's one where it was, I think it's like a boulder drops on a guy's head and falls off, and the guy goes, ow, and then he goes, whiner, beer.
Paul Brielart, our resident engineer, says, I believe George Miller was a doctor who left to pursue directing. Interesting.
Wow.
They're saying that Wes was also in Weird Science.
I think he was.
Oh, God.
I think he was.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it too.
But anyway,
with another film with Bill Paxton.
Yeah, exactly. My gosh, the guy was everywhere. We talk about 7 Degrees of Separation with who's the
Kevin
guy?
Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, right? Maybe it's 7 Degrees of Separation with Bill Paxton. So, all right. So that's sort of those are our picks for our top action adventure movies of all time. Certainly, you can make your own list and disagree with us. We encourage that here. Not really.
And there's not a single loser in the bunch. That's the whole thing. Any of those films would be great to watch.
That's right. But now, let's take a look at some original art. Should we do that?
Yes, because the whole point of doing the action films, folks, is something Aaron said on one of these shows a long time ago, that comics are the no-budget blockbuster. That's what they are. You can do things in comics you can't do anywhere else. And here's a great example right here, my page from Guy Gardner Warrior number 21, Hal Jordan Parallax versus Guy Gardner. I mean, right there, this is the epicness of exactly what blockbuster movies are about, the big action. I mean, just look at that image. One image, and it's just all power. And this is what it's all about right here. This is what blockbuster movies are about, and this is what great comics are about right here. Big action, the bigger the better. You can't do more. I love it. Mitch Bird's art is great. Second issue written by the great Bo Smith. So I mean, just and the thing is this issue was tied into the Emerald Twilight storyline, because this storyline was called Emerald Fallout. And this issue in particular, 21, was done all in splash pages. Every page was a splash page in the issue.
Was it really?
So there you got counting the cover, you have 23 splash images.
Whatever happened to Mitch Bird?
I don't know. After kind of like after the 90s, after like right around the early aughts, he just sort of like disappeared.
Wow.
But I love this style. It's cartoony, but yet it's also got, like, as you can see, like gravitas to it when he's doing a big action sequence like this. I mean, you know, this is classic comic action right here.
This is I love the use of that the sound effects lettering there as being a part of this image. It's really works well. That's a great page. Who's the inker on this?
I think it was Dan Davis is the inker.
Okay. Yeah. Because I did a fill-in on a Guy Gardner Warrior, and that's who inked me. So.
Oh wow, Dan Shaheen here trashing on Mitch Bird right here.
What?
I think he works in Costco.
Whoa!
He went from doing awesome comics to working in Costco.
Hey, I might be a greeter at Walmart before you know it. So let's not cast any stones.
So let's see the color version here.
There it
so
is.
We can check that out. And there it is in color, folks. I mean, there it is. I mean, this is the big budget blockbuster action that they could never do in films, at least until 10 years ago because of CGI.
Look at that simple coloring, simple but effective coloring.
Yeah, I mean, how many colors do we have? We got green, like a bluish gray, yellow, orange, magenta on the lettering, and then a little bit of blue in the background, and that's about it. Just a very simple color palette.
Yep, those were the days, man. It was a different time and a different industry, man. That is for sure.
But see, again, this works like that because again, the simplicity in the colors adds to the no pun intended, the impact of the image.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you did modern coloring on that art today, like, you know, if you took my page and you recolored it in a modern way, it wouldn't be nearly as impressive as this.
No, I just, you lose sort of the graphic nature of comics when you get this, like, I don't know, over the top, and the coloring itself. There's some guys that do some really nice work, but it's like it doesn't feel like comics anymore, you know. And I kind of miss the simplicity of something like this. The powers you're talking about, the simpler color scheme. It just feels like comics that we grew up on, as opposed to what comics have become. And I'm not just talking about subject matter wise. I'm just talking about as an art form, how very different and sophisticated they've become, but it sort of loses that sort of childlike appeal that they had when they were simpler. But no, that's
working so hard to make it easy. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me share a piece of artwork that I have. Now it shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody. This is by one of my favorite artists, me. I almost brought out a Conan Wonder Woman page to kind of tie into Gladiator, but then I thought, let me pull out this cover to Marvel Adventure Comics, because a whole super team, the Hulk versus the Abomination, falling off a building. What speaks more to action adventure than this, right? Got everybody's heading to the pavement. We've even got classic leader right here. This is before. Well, actually, I asked if I could go back to this look for the leader, because Dale Keown had turned him into a broccoli head, if you remember.
McFarlane had done that. McFarlane.
Oh, was it McFarlane that turned him into a broccoli head?
Who gave him the big brain.
Yeah. Okay. I'd only seen it in when he showed up in the Hulk that Keown was drawing. But this was a great book because it was, this is Marvel Avengers, which was kind of supposedly like their kids line, but they were more like classic, comic books you would have read in the 70s or 80s. And, so it didn't feel like you were doing a kiddie book. It just felt like, you were doing a classic comic. And
that goes back to what you were saying about how they've changed. Like, stuff that, back in like the 70s and 80s, we look at now and they say, well, that's like kiddie fair. It's like, really? It wasn't kiddie fair back in the 80s.
No. And Jeff Parker wrote this, and I wanted to do interiors, but the sales in the book weren't great, and they couldn't afford me my page rate to work on this book. So they wouldn't let me do the interiors on this book, because it was just classic superhero comics. And I was like, that's what I want to draw, man. And they were like, nah, can't do it. So, but I got to do some of the covers, and I was going to sell this cover after I did it. My son is like, are you out of your mind? You're keeping that. Translation: when you die, Dad, I'm cashing in. So we shall see.
That's right. Well, Squibs here backs you up. He goes, that is a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you.
Bilbo Baggins says, wow. And then G.J. Martinez goes, your Iron Man is just sick, but Aaron, but this whole piece is outstanding.
This was a blast, man. I mean, just look at the characters they put in the Avengers: Wolverine, Storm, Spider-Man, Cap, the Hulk, Iron Man. It was like they could put whoever they wanted in here, because it was Marvel Adventure Avengers. And so I did like 4 or 5 covers of these, and it was a blast. So I kept a couple, sold a couple. But anyway, there you go. There's a little action adventure superhero piece for you by my favorite artist, me.
And that's certainly that's like big budget style action right there. I mean, just the Hulk versus Abomination alone, and then when you throw in all the rest of them,
I know that's what you get into comics when someone says, "Oh yeah, you want to draw this?" and you're like, "Yeah." So it was that's when I was actually having a little bit of fun every once in a while over at Marvel.
Well,
doing
I was
those things.
watching one of Shane's streams recently, and he was talking about how he did some covers for like Marvel for a Hulk book. And when he first started out, it was fine, but then he started telling him to change. He's like, "Well, can you not make him look so angry? Because it doesn't make people don't like him when he looks angry. You know, you can make him more pleasant looking. And then it's like, you know, can you not have him making fists? Because, you know, making fists makes him seem kind of violent. We don't want to come off as too violent because, you know, and it's like, he's the Hulk. He's angry and he beats things. That's what what are you talking about? So Shane did his image of the Hulk looking like he kind of like maybe like walks through a wall, like sleepwalks through it. And he's like, his hands are all open. He's like got like a neutral look on his face. Like he just like walked through a wall, like, huh, what, where am I? And it's a horrible image. It's like, that's not the Hulk.
No, it's just, I don't know what, I mean, it's just, that's what happens when you get like people in charge of characters. They have no concept of what the characters are or what they're even doing. Unbelievable. Someone asked here, who was it? Wanted to know if Johnny B. Good says, is Dale launching Pitt tonight? No, he is not. Something came up. I have no idea what, but they were supposed to launch today. And then Dale made an announcement on Twitter saying that he wasn't going to launch, but right now, and I have no idea why. So I'm not hip to the information.
Well, Geek Avenger, you know, we'd have to take like a whole extra 2-hour show just to even begin to delve into that question. We'd have to do a whole 2-hour episode just on that alone, and we would just scratch the surface.
Well, when you've got in a nutshell, the Reader's Digest version here, if you want to go old school, the Reader's Digest version is that you have a bunch of people working in comics that don't know comics, don't understand comics, don't know the history of comics,
and don't even like comics.
They don't like comics and they want to change them into something that they like, whatever that is, because if they like it, no one else does.
And the reason they get away with it is because the characters and all that are owned by corporations who don't care about any of it either.
Right. That's the problem. So they're hiring people that don't care, and they don't care. You know, back in the day when Marvel owned Marvel and DC owned DC, you know, they would have guys that would come in and be editors, but they were generally guys that had worked in the industry for a while. Then they said, you know, I'm tired of the rat race, the grind. I'll be an editor. So you always had guys that knew what they were doing and had experience in what they were doing and knew and understood the characters. And so if somebody wrote a script that wasn't right for the Hulk or wasn't right, they would say, no, you got to change this, or that won't work for this character, kind of thing. So they were actually mentoring people coming in on how, you know, how to treat the characters, what was expected, all these different things that are just completely gone now. You know?
Well, I just go back to what I heard from Denny O'Neil on a documentary on comics that was done in 2004. And he was talking about, this is right in the wake of A Death in the Family when he killed Jason Todd. And he goes, he was at a delicatessen. And the guy behind the counter saw him, and he had a Batman lapel pin on, as he always did. And he goes, hey, you're the guy that writes Batman, aren't you? And he goes, no, I'm just the editor of the book, but I do work on it. And so the guy turned around and yelled in the back, goes, hey, this is the guy that killed Robin. And he goes, that's when he learned that the creations, they will always matter more to people than the people who work on them. They will all, you know, the creation is more important than the creator. Mm-hmm. And he goes, that's when he learned that when you're the editor of the Batman and Superman titles, you aren't just a comic book editor, you're the custodian of folklore.
Exactly.
And I say that's true, but I extend it out to, if you're a creator of any stripe, working on any of the iconic characters, you're not just a comic creator, you are the custodian of folklore. And that is how you had best approach it, or the fans will let you know about it.
I knew you knew that, Geek, but I was just, you know, we're just pontificating up here for those who might, you know, wonder what the heck is going on behind the scenes. So, all righty. So this, of course, inevitably leads to exciting stories that happen to us at the conventions. So, James, do you want me to share a picture, or do you want to talk a little bit first?
Well, I'll start a little first. This was from the last show I went to. This show I'm going to next weekend is the first comic convention I've done in 4 years. I haven't been to a show in 4 years. It'll be my first post-pandemic show. And the last show I went to, which was October of 2019, which we're going to talk about here from the story, that was the first show I did for 5 years before that. So there was like a 5-year gap, that show, and then the pandemic, and now finally 4 years in another show. So, but I went to this show. It was the Jet City show up there in Tacoma. I had to go because Buck Rogers was there, Gil Gerard. And I'm like, I grew up with Buck Rogers. I watched, it's one of the few shows I could watch with my father. We both enjoyed it. And, you know, so I had to meet the man. And so I went there and, you know, you can show the first picture. I got some stuff here because, you know, you got to get something if you're going to meet someone like Gil Gerard. You got to get some stuff. And I remember when I went up to him, this was on the Sunday. It was on the second day because the first day I was running around getting all my autographs and everything else all done. And I went to see him on Sunday. And he had talked me into buying this little ditty bag you see here with the Buck Rogers symbol on it. It was some kind of like thing that was limited amount made, and the money was going to a charity. And he talked me into buying it just because he was so forceful about like it's a really good cause and it's this and that. And it's like I looked at Heidi and I'm like and I shrugged and I go, it's going for a good cause, right? Because she didn't want to spend the money, but I'm like, oh, but yeah. And he's like, well, it's our last one. If you do it, it's a sellout. And I'm like, and she's like, all right, go ahead. So we got it. And then he asked me to pick out a photo. And of course, I had to go with the classic, the lightning bolt helmet. I mean, if you're going to get Buck Rogers, you got to get the lightning bolt helmet. Otherwise, what would be the point? But while we were there, he was going to do a panel that day, but I had to leave early on Sunday, so because we had to get back for I think it was something for her to do with work, so she had to get back. And so I said, I can't be at your panel. So I said, I'm going to ask you this right now. I say, as you know, there were a lot of fine ladies on the show when you were doing it. Jamie Lee Curtis, Ann Lockhart, you know, the late Dorothy Stratton, Erin, of course, the luscious Pamela Hensley. I say a ton of beautiful women. So my question is, which one was the best kisser? And he started to chuckle, and I said, or is that a Defense Directorate secret? And he goes, yeah, that's classified. It's classified. Which one was the best kisser?
Was Jamie Lee Curtis on there?
She was on an episode of Buck Rogers. Yes, she was.
Oh my gosh. All right, can we show this next picture?
Yeah, so we can show the picture here. This is me and Buck Rogers.
Gil Gerard, not the young stud he used to be. Wow.
Not quite.
And how long ago was this?
This was 4 years ago, October 2019, because it was the 40th anniversary of the Buck Rogers television series, which was in '79. So
he had to be like well into his 70s at this point.
Yes, he was like 74. And I remember I talked to him a little bit about the show. I said, I really love the show because I loved it because it was action and adventure, but you weren't afraid of the camp. Camp wasn't like a 4-letter word to you. It was fun. You made it fun to watch that. And I go, I hear they're trying to remake the series. He goes, yeah, they are. I go, and I'm concerned because, I don't think it's going to have that same fun vibe that your show did. And he goes, well, I'm one of the executive producers. And so he goes, I'm going to try to, push them to make sure we get some of that same kind of vibe from the original series in there for people. So, but of course the show hasn't come out yet, so I'm guessing that didn't work out too well.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool though that you are you a big collector of like autographed photos of, stars?
No, I've got one from Dirk Benedict and I've got one from him, and I'm probably going to get at the show here. I'm going to get Jason Priestley because I grew up with 90210, so I gotta get Jason Priestley's autograph. Yeah,
see if he still has his hair.
Oh, he still does.
Oh, does he? Good for him.
He does.
Bastard. No, that's pretty cool.
So there you go. That's my brush with an action hero right there. The great Buck Rogers, Gil Gerard.
All right, I'm gonna revisit a story that I think I told before, but I don't know if I had this angle on it because when we were talking about earlier about Gladiator and how Russell Crowe looks like Oliver Reed now. we were at a show where Uncle Owen from Star Wars was one of the guests, right? And you have it in your mind that these people, the last time you saw them was on screen in 1977. This, of course, was mid-90s. And you think in your mind, okay, I know what Uncle Owen looks like, but you don't think, well, wait a minute, that was
25
years ago. What does he look like now? So we're sitting down there by the, we were going on this riverboat thing where you had like a brunch, and we went up and down the river, and so we're all sitting around talking, and here comes over the hill. And it is weird because it was kind of like this hill that you had to come over and come down to where the boat was. And so this person emerges, you see this head, and then you see them that they're pushing this wheelchair. And then there's this old guy in the wheelchair, and me, and I think it was Bob Schreck, who was an editor at Dark Horse and DC. We were sitting there going, who the heck is that? And we look at each other and we go, oh my gosh, that's Uncle Owen. And it was. And he was this old, 80-year-old man in a wheelchair. And but the reason to bring this story up is he had a gray beard and white hair. He looked exactly like Alec Guinness did in the Star Wars movie. So he had aged and become Obi-Wan. And it was just like, we were like, oh my gosh, he looks just like Alec Guinness used to look, and he was the nicest guy in the world. We sat next to him at the table. Shelley and I did. And he talked about living on the Thames River in England on like this barge houseboat, and, and acting, and, going through the, the 50s with the communist scare and all that kind of stuff, and different things that he experienced. It was fascinating, right? Because I'd never seen him in anything other than Star Wars, but obviously he'd been an actor for a long time, and did a lot of British stuff, and that obviously I would not have seen if it wasn't a motion picture. But it was fascinating, and I was sitting there looking at him the whole time, going, "I'm talking to Uncle Owen, who looks like Obi-Wan." I mean, because he was kind of this robe thing on too, because he was in a wheelchair and he was covered up with a blanket, and it was just kind of like, oh my gosh. So I think there is something to be said about that old actors turning into other older actors, it's like,
yeah,
that they starred with. So,
well, Richie Dupe says Buck Rogers was ace, and then Peter Felterbrush says I was a bigger fan of Erin Gray myself, and it's like, well, yeah, she did wonders for white spandex.
Yeah, well, I thought she was beautiful
for white spandex.
But it was Pamela Hensley that, as a kid, that I had the crush on. Wow.
Well, I mean, just looking at her, you're like, she shows off that belly. It's like, well, if I was her and I look like that, I'd want to show it off too.
My gosh, yeah, she didn't wear much on that show, which, to a young lad, that's feels like you're getting away with something watching that. Not Anthony Gonzalez Clark for $2. Thank you, sir. He says, "What up, Mr. Lopresti? Nice talking to you on stream." Well, it's nice talking to you. Thank you for the $2. I appreciate it very much. Not Anthony. Well, that's pretty much the show, isn't it? Unless I'm forgetting something, and James, you'll remind me if I am.
No, I don't think we've missed anything here.
Do you want to tease the next show in July?
We do that, of course, we have our shills. So, of course, you guys make sure, if you haven't already, because if you haven't, you're a knucklehead. But you can still change that. Go and back Wraith of God Blood Hunters. It's in demand right now. Aaron is like over halfway done the book. It's going to be coming out soon.
Way over halfway done. There it is, right there.
I said way over. You're over halfway. Yeah.
I've got
lots of stuff.
Drum roll, please. 14 pages left of the 100-page spectacular you're going to be reading. 14 pages left to go is it. So
come on, folks. We can get this over 150,000. We can do that. Let's do it.
Let's do it, folks. And there's also
just $4,000, folks. We can get that. Or $6,000. We can do that. We can make this a $150,000 campaign.
Yeah, I mean, did you see what Rainey got? Rainey made like 15 grand in the last day when she closed. I couldn't believe it. But there's another stretch goal at 150. If we get there, you get a bookmark with some new art on it that I would have. You'd make me work more, but I'll take on the job. To do a new piece of artwork for the for that stretch goal of a bookmark if we hit 150, which I honestly believe we will do. Okay, so and
then of course we have my links down below, the art gallery with all the art from the artists, the MeWe page where you can see all the information about the artist and myself, and of course my YouTube page here where I do some stuff of my own and also have links. I have little playlists for both this, the Comic Art Convo, and the piece I do every month with Pops called Why It's Great. So head on over and join and subscribe to my channel. After, of course, you have subscribed to Aaron's, because he is on the threshold of 3,000, folks. Come on, we can do this. Get him over that threshold.
That's right.
Make him a real creator with 3,000.
Sorry, that's right. We were on stream with Graham last night. I apologize. That's right. We did meet on stream and did talk, actually, not just in chat, but on the show together. I apologize. The name didn't click for me right away, but hey, look at ageism. This is why I got aged out of the industry. I can't remember stuff like that. Actually, I couldn't remember when I was young either. I constantly would have people come up to me and at the show and say, "Yeah, I saw you last week." And I would go, "Really?" I would pretend though that you didn't.
Yeah, but they still think you're Adam Hughes. So I mean,
that's right. So what do they? What do they know?
Well,
yeah, that's right.
Use that to your benefit sometime when it comes to, hey, I really like your voice. Hey, would you like me to do a sketch? And you can charge the Adam Hughes rate.
Well, gosh darn it, that's right. If I'm Adam Hughes, I'm going to get what Adam gets.
That's right.
I do want to point out that I saw some really nice artwork by not Anthony Gonzalez Clark. Actually, he is Anthony Gonzalez Clark, but that he's working on a book with Graham and Chuck. Was it Monster Island or is it New Frankenstein? Joe Frankenstein? I can't remember. But I saw some of his work last night. It was really cool. So keep your eye on that name.
He did the variant covers for the Joe Frankenstein Part 1 and 2.
Yeah, but he's doing some interiors, and he showed some stuff that was like sort of quasi anime manga looking stuff, but not like full blown that I would hate it, because I hate manga. But don't throw fruit. But this stuff was really cool. So I think anyway. So apologize for not recognizing the name off the bat. But if I saw your face, see, that's the thing with artists. We recognize faces, but we don't remember names. So if I saw your face, I always see people and I'm like, I know you from someplace. So
I don't know who you are, but I know that face.
That's right. I don't expect you to remember anybody's name though.
But one thing everyone should remember is
there it is.
July 29th, folks. That's the next Comic Art Convo.
Yeah, it's 6 weeks away, but we had to do this one early because you're going to the Washington State Summer Con.
Yes.
And I'll be interested to hear how that is.
Maybe that will be the con story in the July episode. I'll have some stories from that for you.
Could be.
But yes, that's going to be July 29th is the next Comic Con. Now, I was thinking of several ideas for this, but again, the passing of the great John Romita Sr. has forced my hand, just like it did when Tom Palmer died last year. We're going to discuss our favorite comic book pencilers.
Oh. Not inkers.
So, not inkers.
Because I don't have any favorite inkers. No, that's not true. That's not true.
No, you have two. You and Matt Ryan.
That's right. Well, Danny Mickey, big fan of Danny's. There's a few. So, but anyway, guys, the links are in the description of this video, both to all of James's Sequential Treasure social media sites, as well as Wraith of God Blood Hunters campaign. So you can get there to any of those real easily. We appreciate you taking your Saturday afternoon to join us. It's been great fun, as it always is. And we'll wish James the best of luck at the Washington State Summer Con. We know Geek Avenger is going to be there as well. Probably Leg Kick and a few others. So you guys have a good time there. And we'll see you next time.
Geek Avenger reminding you of another inker you failed to mention.
Oh, Gary Martin. Gary Martin.
Remember, he doesn't remember. Aaron doesn't remember names, guys.
That's right. If I saw him, I would know him.
Yes.
So there he is. Gary was watching, right?
Which, of course, you will see him this coming Wednesday on the Graybeard Studio.
That's right. See, when you start mentioning names, it's like, okay, there's this guy, then that guy, and I can't think of anybody else, even though I know there's more. Gary legitimized my artwork very early in my career with his inking. So I needed someone to kind of tighten it up and bring it together and make it look slick and professional, because I could not do that on my own yet. And so Gary did that for me. So I'm eternally grateful.
Porco wants to know if you have any more playing cards planned for, I guess, Face of God.
There's the Esther Queen of Hearts card that I have to color. It's inked. It's ready to go. I just haven't colored it yet. So there you go, Pork Hunt. There will be a Queen of Hearts. Shelly wants me to make a deck of cards. And I'm like, you know how much art that is? So
how many characters I have to do? Oh my God.
Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me? So, but anyway, you will get the Queen of Hearts. I don't know if you'll be getting any other playing cards, but those you will have those too. So anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We couldn't do the show if you weren't here to join us. And have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy Father's Day for those of you that it's applicable to tomorrow, like me. And we're doing the show tomorrow at 4:00. So Aaron Live tomorrow at 4:00, me and Shelly. So look for that as well.
Are we sure Shelly will be there?
I'm 95% sure Shelly will be there. So we shall see. She's always a game time decision. So anyway, thanks guys. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Peace out.